Karen, I think whenever you're singing, it's the most wonderful time of the year.
Oh, Jyoti.
Yeah. Well, love lives here, and I can tell just by looking around and seeing the smiles and the faces that I'm delighted to see and the light. Absolutely. December theme is gifts of the season. And the gift for today is the gift of forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Now, as Karen said, Hanukkah starts this evening, then solstice is on the 21st, Christmas is on the 25th, Kwanzaa starts on the 26th, and that's not nearly all of the religious holidays in December at all. But my talk would be way too long if I mentioned all of them. But whatever holidays you celebrate this month, this season, or if you don't celebrate any at all, still, isn't the gift of forgiveness just the most wonderful, wonderful gift that we could give ourselves or others? In the Christian Bible, in Luke 3, verse 37, it's claimed that the master teacher Jesus said, "Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." Mm-hmm. So can you imagine what our lives might be like if we lived those teachings, whether or not we ascribe to Christianity, but if we lived those teachings, if we went through our days without condemnation, without any judgment, if we went through our days just automatically forgiving everyone for everything so that our conscience was absolutely clear and our hearts were able to be wide open and loving, allowing Spirit to flow through us in its most magnificent way. Can you imagine what that would be like? Now, I'm not there. I have to admit. I'm not there, but I would love it. I would love to go through my days with that kind of openness and with that kind of joy, because I think if I did that, I think I would be the most joyful person I have ever met, because that's what happens when we forgive. That's what happens when we move through life without judgment and condemnation. We get to feel the joy. We get to feel the love. So forgiveness. Forgiveness means different things to different people. It can be letting go of resentments or thoughts of revenge, letting go of grudges and bitterness. It can be just compassionately, and the key word here is compassionately, releasing the desire to punish anyone, including yourself, for anything that has happened in the past. We can do that compassionately. When someone you care about hurts you, it's easy for us, we have a choice. We can either hold on to the anger and hold on to the bitterness, or we can embrace forgiveness and move into what it will bring into our experience, which is joy, and allowing us to move forward. Because, of course, who hasn't been hurt by the words or the actions of another? Whether it was a parent who constantly criticized, a coworker who sabotaged a project, a lover who had an affair. All of these things, we all have things that we have been challenged with. Maybe something personal, like being sexually or emotionally or physically assaulted by someone you love. Those things that are so easy for us to hang on to and so valuable, absolutely valuable to let go of. Because absolutely, the act or hurt that happened, once we do forgiveness, now that still will have happened. That still will be in the past, but it no longer has that grip on you that keeps you from doing what you want to do, keeps you from loving who you want to love, keeps you from serving the way you want to serve in the world. Forgiveness can even lead to feelings of understanding and compassion for those who have harmed us, whether it's governments, groups, individuals, whatever. But as I loved you reading from Dr. Roger Teal about, forgiveness isn't about that other person, that other group. Forgiveness is all about inside. It's all about us opening our hearts, looking at things differently, and allowing ourselves to move past what is holding us back. In the book of Forgiving, Archbishop Desmond Tutu and his daughter Mafo wrote, "When a hurt or harm happens, we can choose to hurt back or to heal. If we choose to retaliate or pay back, the cycle of revenge and harm continues endlessly. But if we choose to forgive, we break the cycle and we can heal, renewing or releasing the relationship." And His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, "Forgiveness is about healing suffering for ourselves and others. Until we develop compassion within ourselves and a concern about the welfare of others, we cannot truly forgive. We cannot truly forgive." Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean excusing the harm that has been done or making up with the person that has caused us harm. It doesn't mean any of that. But it does bring a kind of peace that helps us to move through our lives, to get on with life and get past what has happened, what truly is past. And it's important to remember that forgiveness is a process. Even small hurts may take time, may take forgiving over and over and over and over. It takes as long as it takes. I love what Edwene Gaines said. She said, "Think of forgiveness as emotional house cleaning." It makes room for the good we desire. It also lets us go as far as we can on this spiritual journey and receive all the universe has to offer. And don't we all want all the universe has to offer? I mean, wow. So emotional house cleaning. Now, just as we wouldn't just think that cleaning our house once or twice was going to do it for all time, also, it's the same way with forgiveness. Yeah, I mean, we have to keep doing it over and over again. Yeah. And Jesus said that we should forgive 70 times 7. 70 and 7 are both considered numbers of wholeness. And the message in that is that we get to keep forgiving until we feel whole again, no matter how many times it takes. It is in our best interest to keep doing it because it gives us an amazing freedom. Forgiveness is vitally important, but, and I don't know if any of you have noticed this part, not necessarily easy. Not necessarily easy. Mahatma Gandhi said, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong." So are you feeling strong? Yeah, great. But carrying the burden of unforgiveness is like dragging around a suitcase or a Santa Claus bag filled with rocks. It slows us down. It gets in our way. It keeps us from going where we want to go and being who we want to be and doing what we want to do. Holding on to grudges and failing to forgive can bring anger and bitterness into all of your relationships and into every new experience. I mean, if we stop to think about it, our lack of forgiveness holds us back in a lot of ways. Oh, holding on to grudges and past hurts, stress. equals stress.
Yeah.
And that affects us physically. Stress of continually living with this big bag of rocks on your back, that slows us down. It can cause aches and pains. It can cause anxiety and depression, headaches, insomnia. It can weaken our immune systems. It can sap our energy. And it can cause havoc with our digestive systems. That's just the short list. Stress, holding on to lack of forgiveness, can do all of those things and more. So it's important that we forgive. And cowboy wisdom shares yet another reason to forgive. Forgive your enemies, it messes with their heads. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Funny.
I speak only the truth. I speak only the truth. So how do we forgive and who benefits? First, of course, we have to have a willingness and an intention to forgive and to let go and to move past what has hurt us in the past. We have to have it authentically coming from our heart that we have this intention that we're ready to let go. Because, you can't fool your heart. You can't fake forgiveness. It just doesn't work. We can remember that we're doing forgiveness not for that other person, not for that other that has harmed us, but we're doing it so that we can open up our own lives, so that we can set ourselves free, so that we can open our hearts to live lives of greater love and greater joy, greater service, greater abundance, more of all that makes life absolutely magnificent. And then, of course, we can identify just what it is that needs to be healed. Who and what needs to be forgiven. Now, for some people that pops into their mind just immediately, absolutely immediately. For some of us, we may need to look a little deeper, to look at where our pain is, where our being held back is coming from. But absolutely, it is worth it to identify, okay, who am I going to forgive? Who will I be freed up by forgiving? And then, of course, you get to do that through journaling, through prayer, through talking with a trusted friend, through talking with one of our amazing practitioners who are wise and compassionate. Talking it out, writing it out, actually working with those feelings, it does make a difference. It's more than us just saying, okay, I forgive you. But then we get to say or write our forgiveness. Now, we don't necessarily have to share that. It's for our own personal growth. But to actually speak out loud our willingness to forgive, to write our maybe even a letter of forgiveness can be very, very powerful, whether we share that or not. As you forgive, you'll no longer be defined by those things that have held you back in the past. You'll no longer have to spend so much energy doing the workarounds so that your life can move forward the way you want to. I love this quote from Lewis Smedes. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. Oh. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. But wait, you say, what if it's me that needs forgiveness? What if I'm the one that has wronged someone? Because I think that we all experience that. Well, first of all, it behooves us to look clearly and compassionately at what it is that we have said or done. Not to beat ourselves up about it, but to actually recognize, okay, what happened? What happened? What effect did this have on the other person? And then, if it feels comfortable, you can go to the other person or the other people and, without making any excuses, ask for forgiveness. Now, once you've worked through your stuff a little bit, because you don't want to be working through your stuff while you're talking to somebody asking for forgiveness. You want to have done that beforehand. But once you have done that, you can ask for forgiveness. Now, unfortunately, we can't make anyone forgive us. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't really matter. We can't make them forgive us because each one of us and everyone forgives in their own time and in their own way, or not. Just doesn't always happen. What you can do, though, is forgive yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Make amends where you can. Apologize to people if that feels right. Do your work with Spirit. Do your prayer work. Open your heart. But absolutely forgive yourself, because that's where your freedom will come from. That's where your freedom will come from. And then, of course, by all means, pay attention. Learn lessons from it. If you have hurt someone in some way, boy, I know I have done this. Opened my big mouth and said something and wished I could suck those words back in.
Oh, yes.
You know, I did that with my sister once, and it has been one of the biggest lessons in my life. Because after that, I felt so bad. It's like, maybe I should start thinking before I speak. So I'm working on it. Yeah. So forgiveness isn't easy, but it's important. And I doubt that there are any of us here who could not benefit from doing some forgiveness work. Don't you think that's right?
Absolutely.
Well, I have a story to inspire you, showing how powerful forgiveness can be. And this is the story of Mary Johnson and O'Shea Israel. There they are. In 1993, O'Shea Israel, who was then 16 years old, got into an argument with Loramian Bird, who was 20. This was at a party, and O'Shea shot and killed him. Oh. Now, Loramian was Mary Johnson's only son. Excuse me. Here's what Mary Johnson had to say. I believe hate set in then and there. Here I was, a Christian woman, full of hatred. Now, O'Shea was sentenced as an adult. Even though he was only 16, he was sentenced to 25 years. And Mary goes on to say, in court, I viewed him as an animal, and the only thing that kept me going was being able to give my victim impact statement. I was inspired by my faith, so I ended off saying that I'd forgiven O'Shea because the Bible tells us to forgive. But I hadn't actually forgiven. The root of bitterness ran deep. Anger set in, and I hated everyone. I remained like this for years, she says, driving many people away. But then one day, I read a poem that talked about two mothers. One mother whose child had been murdered, and the other mother whose child was the murderer. It was a healing poem about the commonality of pain, and it showed me my destiny, she said. Suddenly I had this vision of creating an organization to support not only the mothers of murdered children, but also the mothers of children who had taken a life. I knew then that I would never be able to deal with these mothers, never be able to do this service if I hadn't really forgiven O'Shea. So I put in a request to the Department of Corrections to meet him. She goes on to say, never having been to a prison before, I was so scared when we got there that I wanted to turn back. But when O'Shea came into the room, we talked for 2 hours, and he admitted what he'd done. I could see how sorry he was, and at the end of the meeting, for the very first time, I was genuinely able to say that I forgave him. He couldn't believe how I could do this. And he asked if he could hug me. So he did. And when he did, I just bent over and said, "Oh my God, I just hugged the man who murdered my son." And she says, when I got up, I felt something rising from the soles of my feet and leaving me. From that day on, I haven't felt any of that hatred, animosity, or anger. It was over. And here's what O'Shea had to say. He says, as a child, I never looked in the mirror and thought, you're going to grow up a murderer. I'm still trying to figure out how I went so off course to commit such heartache. For years, I didn't even acknowledge what I'd done and would lay the blame on everyone else. I didn't want to hold myself responsible for taking someone's life over something so trivial and stupid. In prison, I spent a lot of time in segregation and for a long time had a face on which looked like I didn't care. Then one day, I had a sort of epiphany and started to look at how I was living my life. I went through a real growth process. Luckily, I had started changing and educating myself by the time Mary approached me. At first, when she asked to come the first time, he said no to the meeting because he wasn't ready. But she persisted, and when she tried again, he says I was in a better place to hold myself accountable. To call myself a man, I had to look this lady in the eye and tell her what I had done. I needed to try to make amends. Whether she forgave me or not was not the point. He says, I walked in to meet Mary without any expectations, and it really put me at ease the way she genuinely wanted to know about me. This was something completely new because when you're in prison, no one cares about who you are. He says, knowing Mary has made me more humble, made me approach things differently and not always expect the worst from a situation. Even when I don't believe in myself, when I'm being super stubborn, she's just as stubborn to keep wishing me better, wanting me to make progress. I'm more positive now because I have someone in my life who supports and believes in me, even though I know Mary would prefer to be giving all this love to her son. He says, I have learned that if you hold on to pain, it grows and grows. But if you forgive, you start to starve that pain and it dies. Forgiveness is pretty much saying, I give up holding on to that pain. Well, in March of 2010, O'Shea was released, and Mary gave O'Shea a welcome home party organized by her organization, and then she and O'Shea became next-door neighbors. Even some of the ex-gang members, because he was not the only one to leave the gangs, of course, even some of the ex-gang members from Chicago drove down to witness what was happening. Now, when O'Shea told Mary he wanted to share his story publicly, along with her, so they could help others, she practically couldn't believe it. She said, he's my spiritual son, my spiritual son. O'Shea said to Mary, I admire you for being brave enough to offer forgiveness. It motivates me to make sure that I stay on the right path. Regardless of how much you see me stumble out there, you still believe in me. You still have the confidence that I'm going to do the right thing. And you still tell me to keep moving forward, no matter what. Mary said, you know, I didn't see Laramian graduate, but you're going to college and I'm going to see you graduate. I didn't see him get married, but hopefully one day I'll be able to experience that with you. Our relationship is beyond belief. With a smile, O'Shea said, I agree. I love you, lady. And Mary replied, I love you too, son. the power of forgiveness. Now, Mary now dedicates her time to From Death to Life, the organization, the nonprofit that she started that works to reconcile and end violence between families of victims and those who have caused harm. So, out of all of that, her forgiveness and his forgiveness of himself somewhat, though I read enough to know that that's still an ongoing process for him, was absolutely powerful. Forgiveness is powerful. Are you ready for it? Are you ready to forgive?
Yes.
Yeah. Once again, let's look at this affirmation. Because should you decide to accept it, this will be your homework, to take this affirmation home and work with it as much as opens your heart. Okay, today I choose to forgive and open my life to greater joy. Once again, today I choose to forgive and open my life to greater joy. Now, as practitioners, stand with me in high consciousness. Let's move into prayer. Right here, right now, the love is here, the joy is here. It is here waiting for us because it is part of the divine that surrounds us, that makes up all of everything. As we move, as we live our lives in this love and joy and amazing prosperity and amazing creativity, we absolutely are charged to remember that we are one with it. There is not a God or a spirit or whatever out there and me here. Right here where I am, God is. Right here where each one of you are. Spirit lives in all its fullness. I am so grateful that each one has come here to express the divine in their own unique way. So grateful that as we go forth, we can open our hearts to forgive. We can open our hearts, and as we do that work, as we do that forgiveness work, we are blessed. Now, the whole world is blessed, because forgiveness that happens in any one place happens every place, because that's the way Spirit is. It is everywhere. But as we do our work, we are blessed. As we forgive ourselves, as we forgive others, as we forgive anything or anyone who has ever done us harm, we free ourselves. We free ourselves to live in greater love. We free ourselves to live in greater joy and greater service. We free ourselves to live an even more magnificent life than we have ever imagined. So whether we have come from a week of challenge or a week of celebration, whether we have come here just bubbling over with wonderful things that are happening and bubbling over with joy about all of the holidays, or not so much, right here we have opportunities to choose our thoughts, to choose what we will step into. And so I claim for each person that each path is filled with opportunities to forgive, opportunities to love, opportunities to make money, opportunities to have fun, opportunities for everything that each one wants, opportunities for healing. And so because I know how prayer works, because I know that the law responds to what I have said, what I have felt deep in my gut, that the creative process can only say yes. Because of that, I am just grateful, grateful, grateful. I can give thanks as if it has already happened, because in the mind of God it has. And so knowing that I have spoken the truth, knowing that it is manifesting for each one of us now and going forward, I simply let it go I let it be, and I invite you to say with me, and so it is.